It's a Miracle.
David said he didn't feel well.
He had to relearn everything after a debilitating stroke.
He became totally paralyzed on the right side.
But no one could explain where he learned to paint like this. Then, a woman's precious pet becomes an accidental tourist. Where she ends up is truly amazing. Also, reviving a man after 15 minutes underwater would be nearly impossible. But to survive with no brain damage would take a miracle. Also, see an extraordinary story of faith, courage, and love.
The little girl standing there looking into the camp, I said, "You are my angel," and I proposed to her.
All this and more on It's a Miracle.
Dow Richards and her 10-year-old son David were excited for a Las Vegas adventure.
Another vacation!
Yeah! Thank you!
We went to Vegas, actually, so the whole family was going. We liked the shows, and we were going to go see some of the area attractions, Hoover Dam and the like.
Carol chose to stay back with David one morning because he felt sick.
We were getting ready to leave, and David said he didn't feel well, and I thought it was maybe an allergic reaction or something like that. So I gave him an allergy pill and told him, you know, why don't you take a nap? You'll probably feel better. And I fell asleep too, and David actually woke me up. And he couldn't talk, he was mumbling, he was trying to get my attention. I told David, you better stop goofing around, because I thought he was kidding. And he didn't start laughing. They started evaluating him in the emergency room, and he went into seizures. And they wanted to do a spinal tap. When I saw the nurse with tears streaming down her face, a tremendous sense of panic overcame me, because there was really, obviously, something terribly wrong. I remember the doctor coming to get me, and he sat me down and he said that David had had a stroke. He had a very rare disease of the blood vessels of the brain. When David had the stroke, he really became totally paralyzed on the right side. The part of the brain that was the most damaged was the part with language. And language entails not only speaking, but understanding, reading, writing, spelling.
David had to face 2 more brain surgeries to prevent future strokes.
David, look at the camera. Can you smile? Had he not had the surgery, David would have eventually had 1 stroke, another stroke, and another stroke. It would have eventually cost him his life, yes.
Hi.
There he goes. He's off to class.
How much better this is today?
David was going to have a huge mountain to climb. David was going to climb it, whether he climbed it himself or I had to push him up the mountain. We were going to get to the highest point of the mountain that we could. We were not going to give up. I mean, he was 10. He had his whole life to live. He had a future.
David was now faced with a condition called aphasia, which made him unable to communicate with those around him.
When I brought him home, he still was hardly talking, you know, 2 and 3 words. It's like there were times I felt like I can't do this another day. Because, you know, you're trying to talk to your kid and you can't even get it across. When David returned home, he started, I believe it was 5th grade, and it was a challenge. All of a sudden, he became a quote-unquote special ed student, and whatever that entailed and the psychological impact of that. It wasn't a supportive environment for him, and in fairness to the school, they really hadn't dealt with somebody with aphasia and those language disabilities before. Aphasia is something you usually see in a nursing home.
David struggled to find a release.
After the stroke, I had a really hard time being with the school and making friends and all, so I needed an outlet to escape from the outside world and just focus on the art.
David has not only enjoyed painting, but it's been a release for him. And I had all the reasons why he just couldn't do it. And thank God he had the fortitude to say, you know what, I'm doing it anyway. And he has found a tremendous amount of success in doing that, and he's made a difference.
Is that good?
Yeah, it looks good, David. Now rinse your brush off, and we're going to try just wetting the paper down first.
Debbie Marlowe, his art teacher, became one of his best friends.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Blending of the colors, yeah. When I started out with David, he was extremely talented. And when Carol called me after his stroke, I thought, why not? And I told Carol, let's give it a try. I'm open. I'm going to take him from the very start of holding a brush, what the colors are, this is your paper, what the paint does, and then he would take off on his own.
Art has now shaped David's future and allowed Carol to step back and let him shine.
When people say, no, you can't do that and stuff like that, I feel that I can do it and I can overcome obstacles that people think I couldn't do and stuff. I really like art, and I believe it will be my career in the future to do something with graphic design or something similar to it.
He is a survivor because it is in his soul, in his heart, in his mind, determined to follow through and pick up and make a life with what he's had to go through and be successful.
I remember praying that, you know, he would always be fine. Well, he wasn't fine. But God had a different purpose for his life. And when I look at where David was and where David is, it really, truly is a miracle.
Next on It's a Miracle. A cat jumps into the wrong van at the wrong time and goes on the ride of its life. When It's a Miracle returns.
Jennifer Hill of Boulder, Colorado is a cat lover, and she received her first cat, Hokey, under very emotional circumstances.
Hokey and I, our relationship was very close. I inherited him when my cousin died of cancer. She actually gave him to me on her deathbed. So I felt a very strong bond with him.
And then in 1997, Jennifer brought home a friend for Hokey named Lapis.
He was a small kitten, and they did not get along. Hokey made it very clear that he thought she was an interloper, and over the period of about the first 6 months, she gradually won him over. So they were very close.
But at 16, Hokey was becoming increasingly frail.
For several years, he had had kidney problems, and it was evolving into kidney failure, and it was getting to the point where I had to give him IVs on a daily basis.
Jennifer was finally forced to make the difficult decision to put Hokey to sleep.
Lapis, come here, sweetie, and say goodbye. Right before I took Hokey to the vet, I brought Lapis and Hokey together to say goodbye because I thought it was only fair that they should be able to say goodbye. And they touched noses through the cage. And then I took him.
Okay, it's time to go.
When I came back from the doctor that day, I brought the cage in, and I actually told Lapis that Hokey had passed.
He's gone, sweetie.
And when I did that, she went to the cage and she licked the cage and sniffed at it. And I felt like she understood.
Later that day, Jennifer decided to let Lapis spend some time outdoors, something she did every day, but this time Lapis didn't return.
Lapis!
I wanted to bring her in, and I didn't see her, and it got to be dusk, and I started I started worrying right away.
Lapis.
I always let her out during the day, but brought her in at night because there are coyotes in the area. I was worried that she was grieving Hokie. I was worried that maybe she was angry with me. That night, I started putting posters together. The next day, I started putting posters up in the area.
Thank you. I wonder if you've seen this cat anywhere?
No, I haven't seen the cat.
No, I don't think I have seen that cat.
I ran around answering calls of people who had seen a black and white cat. Many people saw black and white cats, and they were all not her.
Lapis!
Unfortunately, she was looking in all the wrong places. The surprising conclusion when Miracle Pets continues.
Lapis!
After 2 months of canvassing her neighborhood with posters and speaking with anyone who might have seen her lost cat,
Have you seen my cat?
No, I have not.
Have you seen her?
No, I haven't.
Jennifer Hill lost all hope of ever finding her pet Lapis.
It got discouraging when time after time it was the wrong cat or the cat wasn't there.
But nearly 3,000 miles away in the Canadian Yukon, 2 men were about to make an incredible discovery. As Ed Chambers and his brother-in-law Roy checked out an old truck for parts, something else caught their attention.
Oh, BB, come on. It's still holding weight, and it rolls.
We were standing there looking at this axle and talking about it, and my dog BV come right along right behind us, and she stopped underneath this tree and she's barking. So I walked back to look. I thought maybe she'd had a squirrel, because she likes chasing squirrels.
BB, what you got in the tree?
I looked up, and about 10 feet up in the tree, here's this black cat sitting there all scrunched up on a limb and looking down at the dog.
It's a house cat.
As far as I could tell, it was in excellent condition. It wasn't starving or anything. It's quite agile to get up that tree ahead of my dog. In the meantime, I looked up in the tree again, and the cat's gone.
It's gone.
About a week later, Ed's dog spotted the cat again.
I walked out of the shop. Here's my dog again underneath another big tree, and the same cat had a nice big bright green collar on its neck, sitting up there on a limb looking down at it again. Well, I figured the cat was safe.
When he arrived home, Ed mentioned the cat to his niece, Susan.
We got talking about this cat. Oh, yeah, she says, this is a real friendly cat. She said, I just opened the door and the cat just come right in and made itself at home, and I fed it.
You look hungry. What are you doing up here?
Saw that cat again today.
4 nights later, Ed's son-in-law, David Grant, was visiting.
This was the only one who could get it to come to it.
Once again, the subject of the mysterious and friendly black and white cat came up.
I got the collar off. It's in my bag.
You got the collar? Maybe there's a number on there.
She had said that she had been petting the cat and took the collar off of the cat.
It's got the phone number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a number there. Hey, I'll go call.
Yeah, go ahead, call.
It had the cat's name, Lapis, and phone number. So we looked up the area code and saw that it was Colorado. So I phoned the number and nobody was home. A voicemail came on.
Oh, it's the message machine. Oh, hello. We've got your cat.
At 1 in the morning, my phone rang. I was half asleep, and I just let the answering machine get it.
We're up in the Yukon.
I heard a male voice, and then I heard laughter in the background. I thought, well, maybe it's somebody at a party, you know, calling the wrong number.
But something made Jennifer play back the message on her answering machine.
The message said something along the lines of, we've got your cat, we're in the Yukon, we'll call you back. And so at first I just couldn't believe it. I thought it was a prank because I had posted my number all over town. But then I looked, and I have caller ID, and I saw that number on the caller ID had an area code that was unfamiliar to me.
Hi, can you tell me the area code for the Yukon?
It is. So then I thought, this is just strange. So, and I might as well, what do I have to lose? So I called back.
Yeah.
That's a good play.
Yeah, that's good. Hey.
Maybe it's that cat lady.
You want to get it, Roy?
You call, you go get it.
Oh, I'll get it, okay. The cat's here.
And she says, what?
Yeah, the cat's here.
And where are you at? And she said, well, I'm in Boulder, Colorado. And she says, where are you at? Well, I'm in Champaign, Yukon. Where's that at? Well, that's in Canada.
Yeah, black, with the white on its chest.
Jennifer still wasn't convinced.
And some on its paws.
I had had so many of those experiences that I had a list of screening questions that I asked about the specific markings and the specific color on her and the specific coloration of her tag and collar.
Oh yeah, collar's a bright green collar.
And really about halfway through I started to believe that it was really her.
I know, I can't really believe it myself.
So is she okay?
Oh, cat's fine. Yeah, a little skinny.
I couldn't imagine. How could that cat get here? I didn't believe that the cat had really come from Colorado.
Yeah, you just call this number back when you're ready, okay?
I put it together and just was amazed. I was amazed.
Okay, thank you so much. I just can't believe it.
And she continued to be amazed when several days later and 2 months after she disappeared, Lapis arrived home from the Yukon.
Oh, sweetie. Oh, Lapis. In a way, I just couldn't believe it was her.
You've had a hard time. I'm so happy to see you.
Even though I knew it was her, there was a moment of recognition and simultaneous misrecognition, you know, because she looked different. She was smaller and thinner, and I could tell she had been through a lot. But I was also very happy. I was overwhelmingly happy.
I missed you so much. You were such a good kitty.
After Lapis had once again settled into her domestic routine, Jennifer tried to piece together what must have happened.
So I found out that some of my neighbors were actually loading up furniture to move to their house in Alaska, and that some of the neighborhood cats had been playing in the back of the trailer.
That should be it. Ready.
I can only imagine that she must have been pretty frightened in the trailer. Maybe not at first, but after a while, when she couldn't get out and there was, I'm sure, no food or water for her.
Thousands of miles later, when Lapis arrived in the Yukon, she had to face many challenges that could have taken her life.
This wasn't like in the dead of summer or anything. So, you know, it was cold nights.
I had a lot going against it, more going against it than I did for it, like with the coyotes and foxes and all kinds of other little animals around here that would be liking to prey on the cat. There'd probably be more things trying to eat it than it had to eat.
Come here, kitty.
But miraculously, Lapis avoided the many dangers of the cold and forbidding Yukon territory, and thanks to an identification tag and the kindness of strangers, finally found her way home. Truly, it was an incredible journey.
My explanation of this amazing event happening, that a cat goes missing and is gone and travels 3,000 miles away and then is reunited with its owner, it seems pretty miraculous to me.
I couldn't imagine how could that cat get here. It's just, well, it's unbelievable. To me, it was. I don't think it would happen again in my lifetime.
But I was just real happy to see her get her cat back, because I know some people get really attached to their animals.
Now that I've gotten Lapis back, I feel about the people in the Yukon who helped me out. I feel like they were great.
Oh, yeah, the cat's fine.
They did a lot for someone who they didn't even know.
Don't worry, we'll get it back to you.
If David Grant and Edward Chambers were here right now, I would hug them both and say thank you. Take them out to dinner.
Just ahead on It's a Miracle, a young girl risks everything to keep a boy from starving. Years later, in another country, they would find each other again. But first, a desperate struggle to save the life of a friend. How could anyone survive after nearly 15 minutes underwater? When It's a Miracle returns.
Ross Davies and Darren Lyons were on their way to a friend's house when they stopped to give Liam Kofi a ride.
Make sure you put your seatbelts on, yeah? Are we going straight over to Mike's, yeah?
Yeah, we'll go straight there.
The boys were looking forward to seeing the work another friend had done on his motorcycle. But they would never make it that far.
They never afford the insurance on it.
I was going between 35 and 40 miles an hour. As I went round the bend and lost control of the car.
In the next instant, the car left the road and went over the bank, spinning in the air and landing upside down in a channel of water. Ross unfastened his seatbelt and pulled himself through the driver's window. By the time he surfaced, Darren was already on shore, but Liam was still trapped inside.
Just saw Liam, and his hands managed to get above the door and just see like his fingertips above the water. He managed to swim out the driver's door, same way I swam out, but he got his ankle caught in the seatbelt.
The more Liam struggled to free his leg, the more panicked he became. Ross had to act quickly.
The first thing I thought was to go down and give him mouth-to-mouth.
Ross had received first aid training, but the techniques he'd learned were on dry land, not underwater. Still, he covered Liam's nose and began breathing into his mouth, praying the oxygen would keep his friend alive.
Every 5 or 6 breaths or so, I kept on shouting.
And then he'd dive again to fill his friend's lungs with air.
I said, no, I can't give up. I've got to save him.
The dramatic conclusion right after this. While driving down a deserted country road, Ross Davis lost control of his car, sending it over an embankment and into a canal. 2 of the boys have managed to escape the crash, but a third, Liam Kofi, is trapped below, his foot helplessly caught in a seatbelt. Ross has been trying to keep his friend alive until help can arrive, but with each passing minute, the chances of his survival grow slimmer.
Help! Please!
And then Melissa Haggerty and Paul Brewer drive by.
And then we came across a boy in the road. As we got closer, I could see the shock and the fear.
What's happened?
My friend's trapped in the car in the water.
Where is he?
Just down there by the...
All right, don't worry.
Help!
Oh, it's down there. It's down there, look.
Help, please! Help me, my friend! My friend's trapped, please!
It had been 10 minutes since the car entered the water.
Help! What's happened? Help me! My friend, he's trapped!
We'll get him out.
Please!
What should I do?
Go get an ambulance! Please! Help! Where is he? Where is he? He's inside! Help, quick! We gotta get him out!
I thought if we got him out quick enough, we'd be okay. I reached under as far as I could and got hold of the lad round his arms and tried to pull him clear. His head was about 2 foot still under the water, so he was actually trapped. I thought he was going to die where he was. I scrambled up the bank to try and find something to open the door with.
Luckily, he spotted a rowing oar nearby.
Quick, hurry!
And it just seemed to be lying there as if it was laid there for the job, like.
Quick! Yeah, that's it. Quick! Yes!
We wasn't going to give up until we got him out.
By now, Melissa had arrived at the pub, instructing them to call an ambulance and enlisting the help of some of the locals there. Nearly 15 minutes had passed when Paul finally managed to pry the door open.
The young lad's face, when I pulled him free of the water, it was just like a corpse.
It's too late. No, too late. No.
He was like blue, lifeless, just eyes completely open.
Come on, Liam. Come on. Come on.
They'd just got him out as we got there. I was just thinking, do something. For crying out loud, just do something for him.
I just massaged his chest Was going to give him mouth-to-mouth, but I don't know how to do it properly.
Liam had been under the water for so long that to revive his lifeless body would take a miracle.
It's very hard to try and comfort someone when their friend's dying.
What have I done? It's all right, it's all right, come on, it's all right, it's all right. It's all right, you're all right.
I think he's just blaming himself and had it set in his mind it was his fault and that's the end of it.
I lost control. Calm down, all right? Just calm down.
By now, 2 more vital minutes had passed.
Yes, come on.
Yes. Come on, son, that's it. Coming round.
All right, you're all right.
It was a miracle that he was coming alive.
Good. What's your name? What's your name, son? Come on, what's your name?
Moments later, emergency teams arrived, headed by Darren Deacon.
The situation at the time was quite desperate. We didn't know how this young lad was trapped.
All right, mate, we'll have you out soon. All right, just stay with it.
His response level was low. He'd gone beyond the stage of shivering, which means that hypothermia started to set on. There was the possibility that he had taken some silt into his system. I used a pair of shears that we'll carry as standard to cut the seatbelt.
Won't be a minute more, just bear with us. Cut it through now. Okay, all right.
As they prepared Liam for transportation to the hospital, everyone involved could not help but think that they had just witnessed a miracle. Dr. William Konarszewski explains.
When people are trapped underwater, a 5-minute mark is a mark beyond which you'd expect very few people to survive, or if they do survive, you'd expect permanent brain damage. Instead, we had a young man whose mind appeared to be very much intact, and who didn't really appear to be that seriously ill.
Ross! All right, Liam. Darren!
He seemed to be absolutely normal. He seemed to just be worried about his jacket. He didn't even want to go to hospital.
I don't want to go!
All right.
Ross!
Sort it out.
I don't want to go!
That's enough. You'll be okay, all right? Don't worry about it. You'll be all right. It's in the car. All right, Liam. All right, mate. Okay, we're taking you to hospital now.
Liam was immersed in very dirty water containing bacteria and chemicals. These substances would have caused considerable irritation to the tissues of his lung and causing the lungs to get waterlogged.
Hi, this is Liam, 16-year-old chap.
Liam developed severe breathlessness, and that got progressively worse until we were forced to intervene.
Okay, I'm just doing enough blood gas.
If Liam had not gone on to the ventilator, his lungs would have filled progressively with water. All his body tissues would have been deprived of oxygen, and one would guess that within an hour or 2 he would have died.
When I walked in there and just saw the machines in, the tubes, I just started blaming myself again. Started thinking, I've done this to him.
You're right, Liam. I'm really sorry, mate.
Accidents happen.
I'm really sorry.
You can't blame it on anyone. It's just one of those things that happens. I can remember the back of the car coming out, then hitting the bank, and the car overturning. Got to the halfway out the window, and then the seatbelt caught around my legs. And then I started pushing really hard with my hands and that, trying to get out. And I was totally stuck. I felt someone swim down and grab my head, open my mouth, and blew air into me. Basically, just saved my life.
I think that there is very little doubt that if his friend hadn't been quick thinking and dived down repeatedly to fill his lungs with oxygen, that Liam would almost certainly have died. Liam's recovery is amazing because he has recovered without any permanent physical damage either to his brain or to his lungs. He is, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same person who went under the water. He survived completely intact, which is little short of a miracle.